So today's webinar is about the LCC and Cybint partnership and the Cybersecurity Bootcamp with the theme of Get Your Career on the Fast Track of Success. Um, just very briefly about LCC International University, because I saw questions in the chat box about what LCC means and what this university is all about. So we are a North American style university based in Lithuania, in Klaipėda, Lithuania. And this year will be the 30th anniversary year for LCC International University. So we're very excited to launch our anniversary year with this new certificate program and with this new partnership with Cybint, and you'll hear all about it today. As a university, our educational model is based on liberal arts, which means that students come and get a very broad-based education, which then allows them to adjust to the changes in the market, and they are not just the specialists of the field, but they're also the generalists that have critical thinking skills, public speaking skills. They're experts in taking in information and drawing conclusions and adjusting to any changes. As a university, we're very international. 73% of all our students are international students coming from 50 different countries, and majority of our faculty and staff come from Canada or the US, as well as all over the world and Lithuania. We are fully accredited in the European Union, which makes our degree valid worldwide. And we are a small university, which provides us for all the relations and the close community within the university. And that's our working styles. In our 30th year, we're very excited to having become the first higher education institution in Europe to become a Cybint certified center. So the Cybersecurity Bootcamp, the first cohort, so the first group will start in the full-time program, and the first launch is February 15th. Today is all about our guests. So the two speakers, the main guests tonight will be and our Cybint CEO and founder, Roy, as well as the LCC Professor and the bootcamp facilitator, Jeff. So we'll start, I'll give the floor to Roy and we'll allow him to talk about Cybint and the history behind and the present, and then we'll move on. So thank you, gentlemen, for being with us tonight, and go ahead.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and it's a great opportunity to share our insights, Jeff and mine, with the audience right now. I know we are both on Zoom and on Facebook, so I hope this will be relevant to the participants. I'll try to discuss or to elaborate more about cybersecurity in general as a profession, as a field of expertise, and not just about Cybint. So I don't want to focus more on the company and just to give you a broader understanding of the field, so you can understand what you can gain from deciding to take cybersecurity as a career path. But maybe I'll start with a short introduction about myself. So I started my professional career in the Israeli cybersecurity and cyber intelligence unit. So the Israeli cyber intelligence unit called Unit 8200. It's one of the leading cyber intelligence units globally. And in this unit, we have a challenge. And our challenge is that majority of people that we recruit to the unit are actually 18-year-old high school graduates. Because of the way the unit works, like a military unit, we cannot afford having people with a degree or with PhD, so we have to take people with no experience in cybersecurity, and in a matter of 3 to 6 months, get them ready to start working in the cybersecurity space. So this is a big challenge that we have in Israel, and we do it with hundreds and thousands of people every year. And based on the same concept that we do in the military training, we developed the Cybint Bootcamp, taking the same concept of accelerated learning in cybersecurity, combining it with hands-on activities and challenges, and create a path that can take someone from what we call zero in cybersecurity to hero, or zero to employed in cybersecurity. Now, I know we're not really starting from zero, everyone comes with a different background, but we assume that from the cybersecurity element, we start from no background at all. So we build it from the networking and IT toward the advanced security, up to how to actually perform in a SOC environment, like a security operations center, what we call SOC, and giving you the right tools and knowledge, skills, abilities to do the job as a cybersecurity professional. So I'm going to share my screen so I can share more about about what we do at Cybint, and then I will Jeff will continue about elaborating about his experience and specifically about the bootcamp with LCC. So 1 second, I will share the screen. Meanwhile, I'll say that you have the ability to ask questions throughout the session. So I think it will be useful for you to ask questions. Some of the questions can be about cybersecurity, other can be about the bootcamp itself, about Cybint, about LCC. So feel free to use the Q&A box for any question you may have. So let's start. So specifically, as I mentioned, the background of starting Cybint came from the Israeli, let's say, military or Israeli cyber unit. And we combined our experience with educators from different universities and colleges globally, mostly in the US, together with other experts and professionals from the industry, what we call CISO, cyber security, different people that in charge of the security aspects, chief information security officers from different companies, CIOs from different companies. Together, we created Cybint to bring a company or to build a company that can bring these learning methodologies to the industry. Now, the thing is, when we talk about cyber attacks and cyber crimes, a lot of times we think that this is something that happens, once a week or once a month when there is a big thing in the news. But it's interesting to understand that cyber attacks and cyber crimes, they happen in the millions every day. Many companies are targeted constantly and have to deal with different attacks and different alerts. Not all of them are successful, but some are successful and some are successful up to the point that the company is not even, doesn't even aware of the fact that they were attacked. So some attacks, it takes even time to reveal them, to find them. And we see that with time, even before COVID, the number and of cyber attacks and the sophistication of cyber attacks is growing. And specifically with COVID, with majority of the workforce is moving online, with more studies is going online, with more online elements are getting to our lives, like Zoom, for example, then also the cyber crimes are on the rise, and more hackers and attackers are targeting actually online components and online elements instead of physical elements, because crime is just moving from the physical space more to the online space. So this is in general the concept of cyber attacks. Now, specifically when we talk about the value at risk, what is the damage that cyber attacks cause to our economy, for example, then we see that the estimation, this specific research is coming from Accenture, one of the leading research institutions in the world. The research was conducted last year, and the research shows that the estimated cost or value at risk from cyber attacks in the next 5 years, since 2019, is about 5.2 trillion US dollars, which is about twice the GDP of a country like the UK. So it's a massive amount of money. And that was even before the effects of COVID that accelerated, this process. And what's interesting is that although it sounds like a technological issue, when we think about cybersecurity, most people think about, oh, that's a technological issue. But it's interesting that actually the biggest challenge we have, or the weakest link in cybersecurity, is actually the human factor. So the fact that we have both human error and underqualified personnel and not enough people in this industry is one of the main reasons that right now the cyber crimes, the cyber attacks are on the rise, and we struggle to stop it globally as a global effort. And specifically when we talk about the human factor challenge, and in the context of this bootcamp, we understand that there is a big gap, what we call talent shortage in the world of cybersecurity. So we are talking about hundreds of thousands of jobs that are unfilled in Europe alone and millions globally. So there are more than 4 million, estimation of more than 4 million unfilled jobs in cybersecurity, which from the industry side is a challenge, but from our side as potential professional in cybersecurity, it's an opportunity because it means that a decision to choose cybersecurity as a career path is a decision that can benefit us for the long term of a career path with a lot of growth opportunities, with what we call 0% unemployment or 100% employment in many different areas. And this is one of the reasons that we decided as Cybint to develop this field and to allow more people to join this market of cybersecurity. Now, specifically at Cybint, we started first as a training company before we developed the bootcamp. We actually we brought trainers from different units in Israel and around the world, and we trained some of the biggest companies in the world. Now, based on this experience and with a vision to create a bigger impact in scale, we actually developed our programs and platforms and products, what we call our learning, training, and simulation platforms that we have from K-12 learning in cybersecurity up to advanced bootcamps and advanced corporate learning in cybersecurity. And this platform that is being used also in the bootcamp structure is comprised of different elements that put a lot of emphasis on the hands-on component, meaning that it's not just a regular course where you study from, I don't know, presentations and textbooks, but it's actually a breathing and living system in which the content is being updated based on real threats from the market, in which you deal with more than 100 labs, simulations, and scenarios, and you're what we call learning by doing. So not just learning the theory, but actually go directly to the practical side of cybersecurity. So in this bootcamp that Jeff will elaborate as well, you get access to a platform. So you have a personal user to a platform that has all the content and labs and challenges and scenarios, updates, etc. And you learn in this platform in a blended mode, meaning there is a facilitator. In this case, for example, there is someone who leads the process, like Jeff, in different places around the world. And you also have access to all the content, and you keep learning in a blended mode where some of the content or some of the process is being done with the facilitator and other is being done kind of like self-paced online. And you can, in that way, you can also, if you find that some elements are more difficult for you than others, you can invest more time in learning them, re-practice some elements, etc., etc. And all of this based on what we call the lab environment, which, as I mentioned, there are more than 100 labs. All of the labs are fully online. So you don't have to download anything, to install anything. It's what we call browser-based. So everything is on the AWS infrastructure. You don't need to do anything other than use your browser that gives you access to everything you need. So in that context, what we are trying to do at Cybint is to create a new paradigm of learning, moving from learning that is theoretical to learning that is hands-on, from learning that is lagging, so you learn the past, to something that is evergreen, so we learn the future, from something that is inefficient in a way in the learning a lot of time to something that is accelerated. And in that element is something that is career-oriented. By the way, we think that research is super important, and people are going to universities and learn degrees also to expand in the research field. It's just different, different learning objectives. At the Cybint Bootcamp, the focus is more on the career orientation. So it's more about getting a job and finding a way to grow in this, in the Cybint element. Now, specifically, the way we work globally, Cybint is working only through accredited and known education institutions globally, like LCC. So our model is that we partner with universities, with colleges, with vocational training companies from small to big around the world. And we create this network of cyber education centers. So in that case, what we see this partnership with LCC is part of the bigger partnership that Cybint has globally. And by joining the Cybint program, you also join this global effort. Meaning at this point, we already have these boot camps in different parts of the United States, of Southeast Asia, mostly in Singapore, starting soon in Australia. In several parts of Europe, we have some partnership with non-universities, like coding boot camps and others. And now with LCC, we are going to expand this to Lithuania and to Europe. So this is something that we believe that will provide you not just the benefit of the skills and knowledge, et cetera, but also be part of this global network of cybersecurity professionals. So the bootcamp, as Jeff may elaborate, is a very intense program. Specifically in the full-time program, it's intense, but it's definitely doable. I mean, people, even without the background, join the cybersecurity bootcamp and succeed in it, meaning that they graduate, they get their what we call their certification and the knowledge and the skills, and then they have this job opportunities, not just in their main, let's say, territory, but this is an international skill. So as LCC is also an international university, this is part of the mindset of studying something that is not limited to a specific location, but it's a skill, it's set of skills and knowledge that can allow you to grow in different places in your career around the world. And the bootcamp experience is also in a way a fun experience, meaning you are part of a cohort. We understand that this intense program cannot be, just self-paced. You have to be part of something. You create a cohort. The cohort has this learning groups and challenges, and you work within the system and you help each other. So you create this, help with the help of this network of experts around the world, etc. And you can see your progress in the bootcamp that is being measured in the system. We can identify together where are your kind of like weakest or weaker areas that need to be worked on, so you can see constant improvement. And in general, what we see globally is that we see high level of positive feedback, consistent from different partners and different learners globally. So I cannot 100% guarantee that this will be your personal experience, but I can say in high level of confidence that most people that joined the bootcamp feel that it even exceeded their expectations in both the content level and the ability to work in this space afterwards. Now, I want to say a few things, a few words, and give some examples before I move the speaking to Jeff, because a lot of time, again, we think about cybersecurity as something that is narrow. A lot of people think that is a narrow field of expertise, just data protection or review of logs and working with some, tools to monitor a network, and that's it. But cybersecurity has a lot of different areas. And the concept of the bootcamp is actually to give you the ability to start an entry-level position in cybersecurity, and then you can decide where you want to grow in the space. Because the bootcamp that prepares you to a cybersecurity analyst position is actually preparing you for multiple abilities to do in the future. You can grow from there to elements that are more like SOC operator and SOC manager, what we call the security operations center, and the protect and defend concept. But you can grow from there to threat intelligence. Or if you have some development experience, you can focus more on secure development. So there are different elements that can be done after the bootcamp. And we see that across the board worldwide, also the entry-level salaries for cybersecurity analysts globally are very good. So regardless if you are going to work in Lithuania, if you are going to work in other countries around the world, the opportunities are significantly higher than average. Now, just to give you some examples on why it's important to deal with cybersecurity, I want to kind of like cover a few questions It will take 5 more minutes to cover these, and then Jeff will elaborate. So a lot of time when we think about cybersecurity, again, we just think about the technical elements. But one of the things we are trying to do here and in the bootcamp itself is also to develop what we call the hacker mindset, kind of like to get you into the mindset of how the attacker thinks, so then you can be a better defender. So I want to give you an example. So for example, a story that happened about 3 years ago actually. There was a big ransomware attack globally that was called the WannaCry attack. It was in May 2017. And this ransomware attack, that's a malware, a malicious software that found its way to millions of devices and computers around the world, affected them with ransomware. So once they try to get access to their data, they have to pay a ransom. So in this case, the WannaCry attack was a pure, what we call cyber crime, meaning somebody launched this attack to make money out of it. Lock the computers, ask for money. If you pay the money, you got back the data, or you got the key to decrypt the data. But 2 months later, there was another attack that looked like another ransomware. But this time, if you pay the ransom, you got a key that doesn't work. And then if you ask yourself now as a cybersecurity professional, why would a cyber criminal, that just wants your money, will give you a key that doesn't work? Because then you'll tell your friends and colleagues and the World Wide Web, you'll tell everyone, well, these hackers are not really giving you your data back, so don't pay them. So it doesn't make sense to do that. And then you can kind of like, if you are a good cyber professional, you start asking questions like, okay, why or who? And then you see, for example, that in this second attack that the hackers didn't provide the key, most of the victims were in Ukraine. And then you also start asking questions, okay, well, in 2017, who has an interest to cause damage mostly to Ukraine, which is not necessarily a cyber criminal because there is no what we call financial gain out of it. It's mostly to cause damage. And then, for example, the World Cybersecurity Network or community kind of like point a finger or blame the Russian elements around it. So we understand that suddenly cybersecurity is not just about an industry challenge or a cyber crime. You're starting to deal with geopolitical forces. So it's beyond just what we think that cybersecurity is. And it's not just the Russians, right? We have the Chinese, we have the Americans, we have the Israelis, and we have others. So we understand that right now, when we think about cyber attacks, a lot of countries, a lot of different groups, government-led organizations develop their what we call cyber warfare capabilities. So it's not just about protecting against criminals, but it's also protecting against other what we call threat actors. So we have these nation states for geopolitical reasons, cyber criminals for profit reasons, what we call hacktivists, the ideological hackers, and others. And when you think about it, you understand that suddenly you are actually in the heart of this global pandemic, which is not COVID in this case, but it's the cyber pandemic. You actually have to deal with this thing that affects everyone and going to affect more and more people, countries, critical infrastructure, economic elements, industries, et cetera, et cetera. So deciding to work in cybersecurity is also just deciding to be one of the, let's call it the good guys. So it's helping the world, the governments, the industries, actually to fight against either criminals, government-led organizations, and others. And we protect, right? We protect and defend against all of these different attacks that we don't have time to cover, but the ransomware and the malware that takes control of your computer, and the spyware that collects information about you, and the data breaches that find their way into the dark web and cause millions of dollars of damage for companies, and what we call the denial of service attacks that cause damages to service either in for consumers or for for other organizations, etc., etc. So we actually learn how to deal with all of these things and answer all of these questions while we are getting or being equipped with actual skills and actual tools that allow us to do that. Now, I have a lot more to say, but maybe I'll stop for now. So Jeff can elaborate, and of course, I'll answer some of the questions later in the session. So Jeff, I'm moving this now to you.
And so just kind of a segue into my professional experience. I've been in education for a long while, and part of my passion really is to move the scale, right? Right now, like you said, there are threat actors worldwide. And I feel the importance of making sure that we have good people um, coming on to balance the scale. It seems to be that there are more and more tilting in one direction. And if I can help either through education, either through training, to bring on the necessary cybersecurity expertise, to bring more balance so that at the end of the day, our world, like you said, this pandemic world, not just medical, it's there's some hope that in fact we can bring this cybersecurity problem under control. And so my solution is to be part of an infrastructure that produces, for lack of a better term, ethical professionals that are passionate about protecting the network infrastructure that they are responsible for. So just a brief kind of a comment. With that, I would like to just share with the audience a little bit about my background. Again, I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel very uncomfortable talking about myself. But as it is, I put myself in a situation where, prospective boot campers are investing and they want to know what they are, quote unquote, getting into. So as your facilitator, I wanted to do this part. And I thought this would be a good just brief intro. This came on, and I just want to share and let the audience know that you can read a recent interview. Basically, my background, just briefly, as you can see on the screen. Can you guys see on the screen? Yes? Okay. Yeah, basically, was born and raised in Singapore, came to the US for undergraduate studies, stayed on, got married, and all of that. And but as you can tell, my background has been in education with a strong emphasis on cybersecurity education. So Roy talked about the need for cybersecurity knowledge, and I certainly agree with this, and that's why we're in partnership. But I want to emphasize that my emphasis has been from the education side, meaning I have been involved in developing programs that are 3 to 4 years. And so I was so intrigued that there is actually this company that has somehow figured out a way to quote unquote condense the necessary knowledge so that for those of you interested to be in this space, you don't need to spend 3 to 4 years to get into this space. And so this option provides you in 3 months, if it's full-time, or 6 months, depending. For us, it would be 3 months. A really effective and efficient way to get into this space, right? And so I was so excited when I came across Cybint and thought, wow, this company has figured out how and what to do, which would have taken me 4 years to do. So this is kudos to a company like Cybint. So I'm going to share this link again, just for the under the chat, so that if folks want to read up more about that. And now I'm just going to perhaps take the next few minutes and showcase, or at least show you what the platform looks like, that Roy talked about. And just briefly on your screen, as you can see, just to give you a taste of the topics that will be covered. And this is from my toolkit, meaning this is kind of what I see, but that gives you a big picture of the different content that will be covered. So on your left, you can see that we have topics ranging from week 1 or unit 1 on introduction to bootcamp. We go into topics under network admin, and there is the intro to cybersecurity. Another topic that we spend a lot of time on is network and application security. How we do incident handling, what forensic is about. We delve into malware analysis. We talk about and practice ethical hacking and incident response. We go into secure design principles, risk management, threat intelligence, and then at the end, towards the end of the bootcamp, there is a final project that we will all do as a class. Okay, so just taking a moment here to look at in detail a specific topic. So emphasizing, say, just using an example on network and application security. Under that topic, we go into cryptography, what that is. And so I'm just going to click on that topic to kind of give you a sense of what is covered under this topic of cryptography. So as a facilitator, there's a systematic plan that I follow, so that in each week there is a quick summary of what we'll be doing from Monday through Friday. I will go into a little bit of detail, but this is an example of a daily plan on this topic, on this area, on network and application security. So as you can see, we lay out the objectives. I'll share with you the materials that we'll need, and then a brief description of, hey, class, this is what we'll be doing today. This is the content. This is what we'll do day 1, and on and on. So it's systematic, it's well designed. And again, kudos to the instructional designer at the Cybint. As a professional, as a professor, I appreciate the detail at which these lesson plans are put in place. And what that tells me is that a lot of thought, a lot of deliberate thought is put in place to design this. And so as a professor, I really appreciate that. Moving on, there's morning session, there's afternoon session. And Roy talked about the many different types of exercises. We use virtual machines, certainly for that. So you'll be in an environment where you are actually doing the work, right? So you fired up a Linux server, for instance. You can actually click on the different features of it and actually do the work itself. So here's an example. On the screen here is the lab, and it's a quick intro. And then after watching that, you actually perform the lab. So this is one example of an assessment. Besides labs, there are quizzes, there are modules, there are written projects as well. So this will be kind of an example into what you would do specifically during a week on a specific topic. So I can stop here if I may, because I hope that sharing this gives the audience a sense of what the training platform look like.
Jeff, if you could just do an overview of the boot camp in terms of the length. And I mean, you did mention classes happening Monday through Friday, but just kind of the scope of what the boot camp will look like.
Oh, so can you see the different topics on the left
Yes.
as I scroll down? Right. So that those are the topics that we'll be covering within the 3 months, right? On the left here. So maybe I have gone through it earlier quickly, but the topics are listed as one, intro to boot camp. There's an overview of topics like network administration, and then we go into cybersecurity. We spend time on network and application security, and then we move on to incident response, incident handling. For instance, if there's a breach or an attack, how would you, as a cybersecurity analyst, handle an incident, right? For instance, Roy talked about a DDoS, which is a distributed denial of service attack. What do? Do you shut the network down? What are the reporting structure? Who needs to be informed if there's a DDoS, as an example? And following that, if following an incident, you want to certainly prevent, right? Part of cybersecurity is not only do you understand and stop what is coming in, you want to dig into how the attackers came into your network. And to do that is forensic, right? You study the traffic, you study what tools were used. It could be as simple as somebody clicking on, which is very common, clicking on an email, a PDF, you click on it, boom, that's it, right? A simple social engineering. But there are more sophisticated attacks. So by understanding digital and network forensic, that way you are more equipped to prevent a future attack coming in. And the next topic is malware analysis. Fascinating topic. If you saw the previous webinar that we had earlier, I believe the Cybint staff showcased a simple but yet powerful concept of how he took a program, make just minor changes to it, enough that the antivirus program was not able to pick up the signature, right? It just changed enough. But to do that, you need to understand how programs are written, and particularly you want to understand how malware, so that you are in a proactive position to stop those things going on. Ethical hacking is fun. Part of this is, in order for you to be an effective cybersecurity analyst, you need to know what the bad guys are thinking or the bad gals are thinking, right? Because if you understand how they think and how they work, then perhaps you stand a better chance of thwarting their attacks in the future. We go into secure design principle. Part of the problem, I think, Roy, you will agree, is 20 years back when we designed the internet, right? We came under ARPANET and all that. Security was not even a consideration. The consideration at that point was connectivity, right? They wanted universities to connect, to communicate, and everything's lay open. As long as you connect, we'll get you in. And so the security aspect of cybersecurity is unfortunately these days an afterthought, right? We sort of do things after the fact, but it's getting better. But initially it was wide open. So we go into now what are some of the important security design principles that you as a cybersecurity analyst should be thinking about in terms of more secure programs coming down. Risk management is huge, right? We live in risk every day. and it's sometimes a balance of convenience and risk. But what happens when a company is attacked? What are some of the implications when your information is under so to speak, somebody says, unless you give us X number of Bitcoin, we will not release those, right? You hear about extortion going on. How do you manage risk in that environment? What sort of principle, what sort of technology do you need to put in place to mitigate risk to an acceptable level? Threat intelligence, Roy talked about that. Certainly is understanding not only now companies or entities, we also now have to pay attention to national actors, like Roy talked about in terms of the geopolitical side of things. And lastly, we go into a boot camp, scenario planning, and a presentation towards the end. Um, so that is a quick summary, Aista. I hope that answers your question about the big picture of what the bootcamp is about.
Right. And sure,
Okay,
Roy.
can I elaborate? Yeah. So
Yeah.
in addition to what Jeff said about the structure, it's important to mention that the way we designed this bootcamp is based on several national and international cybersecurity frameworks. The main one is the US, what we call NIST framework. The NICE is the National Initiative of Cybersecurity Education in the US. It's called the NICE initiative. So in this initiative, we take a concept that is called KSAT, which is knowledge, that's the K. It's skills, that's the S. A, these are abilities. And T are tasks or tools that you need to use or do in the job. So we make sure that everything you learn in the bootcamp is aligned with one of these KSATs, meaning that you actually acquire both the knowledge, skills, abilities, and the tools or the ability to perform tasks in specific aspects in cybersecurity. So we try to make it as practical, as practical as possible. So as the example I gave about the threat intelligence, then to learn more about the concept of, the dark web and what we call threat hunting, how you actually being proactive in collecting information. When we are talking about forensics or malware analysis, is actually about working with a malware, with a malicious, software that you can analyze because you are working with a separate, safe environment with what we call a virtual machine. So you can actually touch and deal with a malware, see how it works, see what happens when we play with it, when you change it, how you can make it less detectable by, let's say, antivirus or anti-malware tools. So from different perspectives, you will actually experience cybersecurity, because then when you will start your career or job in cybersecurity, you will already have the practical hands-on experience as if you worked in this space before. This is, I think, the main emphasis about a boot camp versus a regular course or regular program.
There were quite a few people asking questions about the employability after the course. What are the percentages? You probably have all the experience to answer that question.
Yeah, of course. So our main success criteria for the bootcamp is employability. I mean, the bootcamp was designed to make the learners and graduates of the bootcamp employable in cybersecurity. So it's important to mention that that's how we measure our success. So it's really important for us that the graduates will find a job in cybersecurity. When we ask about the average success rates, then we see that globally, these are around the 90%, 90%, which mostly translates to the people who complete the bootcamp, what we call graduate, finish all the tasks. Then it usually takes up to average of 3 months to actually start a career in cybersecurity. Let's say it can start from a few weeks of looking for a job up to a few months, but the average is about 3 months. between completing the bootcamp and starting in a career. We at Cybint are now helping in building what we call an international group of employers and building this international network of employers that once we launch the program with LCC, we will work and find how we can expand it also to the local industry in Lithuania, but in general, globally. As I mentioned, it's a field that if you have the skills in cybersecurity, you probably have a job waiting for you. So it's not just a slogan say 0% unemployment in cybersecurity. This is how most research shows around the world. Specifically in Europe, where we had a program in France with about 100 people, about 97 of them find a job in cybersecurity within 3 to 6 months after the boot camp. So in France, it was even 97% success rates. We now launch our programs in Singapore, and we hope to see same success rates there. So in general, we have very high expectations for the success of the program in Lithuania. And this is something that we understand that there is a significant demand in Lithuania and in Europe in general. So we are confident in the ability of the graduates to start a career in cybersecurity.
Thank you, Roy. Now that you've mentioned France, there was a very specific question about, the average age of learners. But I would like to expand that question even wider. If you were to comment and kind of make a summary of who this program is best for, what would be your answer?
I think it's a really good question. And I have to say that in different parts of the world, we have different groups of learners. Let me give you some examples. So I'd say that a lot of the learners that we see, for example, now in the US, are what we call college students. So anywhere between 18 to early 20s. This is one group of students. So these are like the early career seekers, either before a degree, after the degree, maybe after an associate degree, which is kind of like more a professional degree. So this is one type of groups that we see. But we actually see a group of people that for them, and this is something we saw both in France and now in Singapore, that for them, it's actually not an early career or a first career stage, but actually a second career stage, meaning somebody that is either in their late 20s, early 30s, even up to 40s. We saw this as another group of people that worked in other industries, not necessarily even IT, and decided to shift. And there are some industries where, although you don't have the technical skills, you have a mindset that is relevant for cybersecurity. These can be in the US, for example, veterans or law enforcement agents. These can be people that worked as analysts in the financial space, but now find their interest maybe in the technological space as analysts. So we see these as two groups. I'd say that what's common to both of these groups, you need to have motivation and real interest to start a career in cybersecurity. This is not, and it's important to mention it, it's not an enrichment program in which you learn a few hours about a new topic and you gain some knowledge about this topic, like these 5 to 50 hour programs or workshops. It's not a workshop, it's an intense program. So choosing to go to this program, you need to have some level of both motivation, excitement about the field, etc., which I think that the field is fascinating. That's one thing that is common. The other thing is, we can guarantee that the learning will be challenging and fun at times and will give you all the tools and skills, but you need to understand that it's also going to be difficult at some point. I mean, every effective learning is also challenging. If it's not challenging, it's probably not effective. When you learn anything new, either it's in a degree or you learn a new language, you learn a new tool. So this is another thing that is in common for those people. They understand that this is going to be a challenge, but a good challenge. So these are two things. And 3, we want to have people that come with what we call open mind to learn and to be exposed to a new world of knowledge and skills. You don't have to be, a lot of people that I talk with are kind of fixated. They are not technological enough. Um, they don't know. It's too, I mean, you don't need to worry about it. Yes, it is a field in technology, but technology, it's not the future. Technology is the present. We are living in a highly technological world. This is actually a great way to get into the technological world in kind of like a fast pace or in the fast lane. So I think that this is something that is common for all the learners that we see, that they understand they are going to grow to this new technological world of cybersecurity.
Roy, would you also add to that if your personality has the propensity for being detail oriented, that certainly will be helpful, right? Paying attention to what's going on, certainly interest in this space. I'm sure you and I and cybersecurity professional in this space, we spend our first hour waking up scanning what's going on, right? Because so much is happening. So it would be good for you to have interest in this space. I think many of us have interest, but then we find that we don't have the skill set to do it. So I think this environment with your personality and interest and now the skill set, I think is a very good marriage in terms of getting into this space.
And for those who are considering the program, I mean, what they got from the webinar is that the program will be completely online, and obviously it's all done in English. So what is the requirement for an English level for participants?
If I may say, I mean, well, Jeff may elaborate. So I think that first we have a pre-bootcamp, both screening process and also a pre-bootcamp content that you go through. I would say that you need to be able to learn in English. So this is something that I would say that as a rule of thumb, if you experience difficulties to understand this webinar, for example, then probably it's not the right fit at this point, um, because you may struggle. If you feel that this webinar was in the conversational level that you have, and you have the ability to read in English and to absorb content in English, then you have the right set of skills. This will be in a way tested in the bootcamp screening process, and this is something that you know yourself better, but it is important to have good level of English. By the way, not just for the bootcamp, for cybersecurity in general. As cybersecurity, the field is a lot of it is in English.
And there is a question about salary levels for this area in Lithuania and abroad. And Roy, you touched a bit about this during your presentation, but maybe you can.
Yeah, I mean, so I can share maybe I'll share the specific, one second, I'll find the specific slide. You should see okay. So I have this research from a few months ago from 2020. It was from July 2020, but there's probably a more up-to-date one, but it's about, as you can see in the US, the cybersecurity analyst position, the average is about $76,000 annually. Now, this is the average, so you can assume that the entry-level positions in this space will be closer to the 50 annually. And you see across Europe, so some countries like Germany and the Netherlands, the salaries are higher. And in France and the UK, also, again, in comparison to Lithuania. What Nadav, my colleague, did some analysis on the Lithuanian market. And we did analyze and saw that the average salaries in Lithuania for a cybersecurity analyst are higher than average. So we're talking about a few thousand euros per month. So this is something that still in Lithuania, if you compare it to the local market, we see something that is significantly higher than average. But as mentioned, this is an international skill, especially in Europe, as you can find yourself working in different parts of Europe, and as now a lot of the work anyways remotely, then it opens different career opportunities beyond just the local one.
So maybe Roy and Jeff, just any last comments or kind of thoughts and encouragements for those who are considering this career path, and then that will be leading to the end of our webinar.
I think I want to thank everyone for joining. I think, as mentioned, for me, I see cybersecurity as a very exciting career path that opens new paths for more than just being an analyst. I mean, the analyst is the first stage. Then there are so many growth opportunities there. And as I mentioned, it's being part of the good guys, good girls, never mind the people who are trying to protect and defend the world, the industries, the governments. So it's also working with a purpose, with a mission. Very exciting field to work in.
Huge thanks to Jeff and Roy for your time and truly for all of the details and insights into the bootcamp and the cybersecurity.